Good evening and thanks for staying tuned. Welcome to our special COVID-19 program at this hour. My name is Ladi Akeredoluale. Here are the highlights. President Muhammadu Buhari orders Nigeria Customs Service to release seized rice to the vulnerable as palliative on the COVID-19 pandemic. His orders are being carried out. Federal government pleads with COVID-19 patients to reveal true travel history and not give false information. And Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab to deputize for Prime Minister Boris Johnson as he's moved into intensive care following persistent COVID-19 symptoms since last week. Thanks for staying tuned. Measures being taken by the Lagos state government to stop the transmission of the COVID-19 virus in the state are yielding fruit. And that's the submission of the State Commissioner for Health at a briefing where it's also explained that the trend of the infection and efforts of government to curb it are also succeeding. The Commissioner, Professor Tuji Abayomi, appealed to residents to use the emergency numbers for only valid concerns.
As of the 30th of March, this red line demonstrates the projected trend of the number of cases we're going to see in. You can see there that the red line is rising progressively with this slope. As of today or yesterday, you can see that the slope has bent downwards and that we're seeing a slightly lower number of cases per day. We can't tell what the long-term projection will be, but this is certainly encouraging data. What has been seen in other locations is exponential rise of cases, and we are seeing a flattening of the trend. When you combine these two gradients together, this was the original trend of last week, and the red line is the trend of this week. But we're seeing some activity here, even though it's low-level activity. We've seen an increase of 1 to 4 in Alimosho. This may represent a low level of activity, but in line with the density of that local government and the number of people in that area, we're going to divert some of our activity in terms of surveillance, awareness, and information to the local governments around Alimosho.
The Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Aki Abayomi. The federal government says it has taken possession of about 150 trucks of rice to be handed over to the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry for distribution across the states of the Federation. According to the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, the rice is one of the palliative measures by the federal government to the vulnerable Nigerians amidst the global pandemic, and is said to be a fallout of an order from President Muhammadu Buhari. The bags of rice are part of those seized from enforcement activities of the Nigerian Customs Service.
We realize the aviation industry is really affected, so is the hotels and transportation, and there's eminent risk to food security. The President has approved drawings from the Strategic Greens Reserve. The Nigerian Customs had in its custody a lot of rice that has been seized, and there's 150 trucks of rice that is now being handed over to the Humanitarian Ministry for distribution to the states across the Federation.
All right. Everything is about COVID-19, palliatives, efforts to curb it, attempts to cooperate with well-meaning Nigerians and indeed others to see how this is being put to stop. Well, one of those efforts comes from what is referred to as the University of Lagos Consults. And they have put together a team consisting of a wide variety of specializations, mostly from the medical profession, to offer expert advice on this COVID-19 right across board. And to tell us a bit more about that is Professor Adebayo Otitoju, who is the Managing Director of UNILAG Consult. Thank you so much for being with us at this time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what's the background to this? Why did you decide to put this together?
Okay, thank you so much. We believe that this is a major issue that everybody must come on board. We cannot wait as people in academics, waiting for the policy makers just to continue deciding on what they are doing without us giving a helping hand. That is why we decided in UNILAG Consult that we needed to have a congregation of specialists, real experts, to provide advisory services to government.
Who are these experts? I mean, if you take a look at it, I mean, we talk about epidemiologists and maybe public health physicians. Who else?
Oh, the group is comprising of about 40 different individuals. A lot of them are public health consultants, medical doctors. A lot of them are also molecular biologists. We have a number of epidemiologists, sociologists, biostatisticians. We also have ecotoxicologists. It's a very varied group in order to provide different angles, of support to government, particularly in the area of, number one, treatment. Number two, understanding the impact, the way it is pushing in terms of the infection rates and the rest of it. That's what the epidemiologists and the sociologists are looking at, as well as some mathematical modelers. They're also doing that. The public health consultants, the molecular biologists, the molecular modelers, they're coming together looking at potential treatments and doing some form of docking studies in order to provide, direction to the frontline doctors on these are the kinds of things that we believe you should be looking at. We have those who are looking at the economic impact, particularly the economists, the other sociologists are looking at the economic impacts, and we also have people who are looking at the testing, particularly the virologists. They're looking at testing.
Now, one of the things you've done already is that a survey has been conducted on the impact of the lockdown, which is one of the methods that is being used to contain this. What have you found?
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. The focus group 3, which is the socioeconomic, so looking at the economic impact, they're the one that they've done a survey, particularly on lockdown, and we realized that Nigerians are very much aware. If we look at some of the reports, Nigerians are very much aware. 100% of respondents, are aware about this COVID-19. When we ask questions with regards to if they believe this lockdown is necessary in order for them, for the problem to be solved, surprisingly, a lot of people agree. Almost up to 80% of the people agree that the lockdown is necessary. And when we asked what are the impacts of the lockdown on them, you could see quite a large number talking about increase in cost of medicine, food, lack of access to medical facilities at this time of lockdown, and a number of other issues like that, were issues that a lot of people have been able to raise. Then we also looked at issue of, so what should government do in terms of, to reduce some of this impact? One thing that I think is quite missing, which the policymakers will have to do something about, is the fact that they believe, a lot of respondents believe that there should be some kind of stiff penalties against those who want to increase prices of particularly drugs at this time of lockdown. And I think this is something we are going to pass on to government, particularly the members of the legislature, to look at this so that when they are drafting the regulations with regards to emergency of this nature, they should consider introduction of price control
Now, are there other things that the body will be taking a look at? Because, okay, in Lagos and the federal capital, that's both administrative and commercial.
Yes.
With the lockdown is now in its seventh day. In other parts of the country, it varies depending on which state you go to. So looking forward, I mean, going forward now, apart from what you just mentioned with reference to the issue of rising cost of goods, would there be other things that have been found already that people can take a look at with a view to correcting those as we move forward?
The whole essence of the study is to be able to tell government when they are doing something correct that what you are doing now is right. The lockdown, even a lot of people believe it's necessary. In other instances, it's also to give an inclination to those who are considering lockdown that, oh, these are areas you should consider, particularly the ones I mentioned about the legislation and the rest of it. Those are things that we will now tell the state governments to say, oh, you have to consider this aspect of it when you are looking at your new emergency laws and the rest of it. All this will pass most of these reports, the outcome of the reports to the state government, the federal governments, and all agencies of government that are involved in this, so that they continually being aware. In fact, by tomorrow, another study is about to start on the palliatives. We really want to know the impact of these palliatives. Is it really getting to the people that it's supposed to get to, and the rest of it? And we really want Nigerians to really participate.
How can they do that?
Yeah, it's just, we normally share the link because it's done on the phone. Okay. We share the link, and it's also available on our website, UNILAG, unilagconsult.com.ng. Okay. It's available on our Twitter handle, and of course, we're going to share this with Channels TV and other TV stations, as well as maybe newspapers and the rest of it. Right. Yes.
Okay, so going forward now, the one about the palliatives, which is the one that is imminent.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting
consider that
study.
Very important.
It's an interesting study because I was looking at what the minister of, I think finance just said now. One of those issues that we wanted to point out was these customs, because there's a lot of times we see customs officials burning food items that were seized and the rest of it. We felt it was something that we should push out to find out what people should feel, whether this should now be used for some of these palliatives that is being used. And you can see they are already doing something. It means that this government is really not sleeping. They are doing a lot of work. They are collating data. They are using data. So what we can do is to reinforce what they are doing, and where they are not looking at some of these other issues is also to point it out to them. I mean, this is what we as a university must do because it's our community service mandate. We have no other option but to do this. It's free of charge. It's something we have to do. And this is a global effort that we also must be involved in.
How have you been impacted? I don't mean personally, I mean the university. Have you been impacted by this lockdown?
Oh, the lockdown. For us, we're completely shut off. Education has stopped. It has ceased.
The students have gone home.
The students have gone home. The lecturers are just at home. But we understand that this is necessary because we also looked at the trajectory. Without mitigation, what would have happened? And we can see that with this mitigation, even as it is being pointed out by the commissioner in Lagos State, we can see that the curve is being flattened a bit. This is very good. So we know the lockdown is really necessary. It's a sacrifice we all will have to be a bit about. I mean, we have no other option.
Indeed. One can only wish you the very best. And I'm happy that you mentioned the fact that this is free. Nobody has to pay for this services.
No, it's free.
So if one were to want to access these services, or one had questions or the kind of information that this survey would already have provided and so on, at other levels, which is not necessarily governmental, but they wanted to use that information to know how to tailor their own.
Of course.
How are you available for that? Is this kind of...
We are generally available. All that is needed is just to send an email, maybe to uc@unilagconsult.com.ng, okay. Or they can reach me on the phone, and we will make most of the data available. Because it's community service mandate. It is our mandate. It is something we have to do. Strike notwithstanding. this is a function that the academics must be involved in. And we are really happy that a lot of people are really participating.
Indeed. Thank you very much, the MD of UNILAG Consult, Professor Adebayo Otitoji, for being our guest tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
COVID-19.
I appreciate it.
A group very interested in providing solutions, not in just complaining, but providing real-time data that could help towards solutions to some of the things, some of the outlying issues that are come along with COVID-19. Now, something else that seems to have generated quite a bit of interest coming from that discussion is the issue of violation of laws. A magistrate court sitting in Ogba in Lagos today sentenced Nollywood actress Funke Akindele-Bello and her husband Rashid to 14 days community service. They are also to pay a fine of 100,000 naira each and will be isolated for 14 days in a place to be determined by the Lagos State Ministry of Health. The court also ordered them to submit the names of all the persons who attended the party. The Attorney General of Lagos State, Mr. Moyo Onibanjo, who briefed the media after the proceedings, also said plans are underway to apprehend and charge other persons who attended the party. As part of their sentence, the court also directed the celebrity couple to visit 10 important public places to create awareness about the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Attorney General, Mr. and Mrs. Akindele-Bello will first observe isolation before doing the community service.
More importantly than all this sentencing is just to say that these regulations are important. The restriction is not just because the government doesn't want people to move, but is to protect everybody's life. And the government will not tolerate or permit anybody to endanger others. So everybody is urged to familiarize themselves with this law and to comply with it. Otherwise, the long arm of the law will reach out to them sooner rather than later. And I think this should serve as an example to everybody. Nobody is bigger than the law.
Meanwhile, the Lagos State Police Command has launched a manhunt for the remaining persons who attended the party thrown by celebrity actress Funke Akindele and her husband. This is confirmed in a statement from the police public relations officer Bala Elkanah, who adds that popular musician Aziz Fashola, also known as Naira Marley, is now in police custody. He says Marley had turned himself in and will also be charged to court for violating the restriction orders. The statement explains that Marley was among the large number of persons, mainly from the entertainment industry, seen in a viral video celebrating a birthday party organized by Mrs. Bello and her husband, Abdul Rashid. The Commissioner of Police, Lagos State Command, CP Hakeem Udumosu, expressed his profound gratitude to Lagosians and other well-meaning Nigerians that spoke up against the violations. Now let's go to the North Central Zone in Nasarawa State, specifically where Halima Gayam earlier on this evening sent us an update on how people are observing the stay-at-home order in Lafia.
It's 4 days since the partial lockdown of Nasarawa State by the government to contain the spread of the coronavirus. Karu local government area is the only local government area of the state that has been completely locked down by the government because Karu shares close borders with the federal capital territory, Abuja, which has the second highest number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus in the country. Restrictions within other parts of the state are between 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., but the usual buzz of Lafia town is still missing. Most residents have decided to stay indoors even without a stay-at-home order, except those who necessarily have to come out. The markets are still closed except for those selling essential commodities. Businesses are still on a standstill except for those providing essential services. All roadside motor parks have been evacuated to the main motor park. Compliance may not be total, but it's appreciable. Residents are still yet to come to terms with the social distancing order. Those who are allowed to come out still cluster in groups to carry out their businesses. From Lafia, the Nasarawa state capital, Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
Thank you very much, Halima from Lafia. And we'll take a break now, but when we return, we'll have the very latest on the situation with the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. So please stay on with us.